Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we are unpacking a World Cup match between France and Paraguay that, honestly, was way less of a traditional football game and much more of a gritty, bare-knuckle battle for survival. We're going to look at the match data and the post-game analysis to figure out exactly how France managed to scrape through to the quarterfinals against a truly formidable tactical setup. Okay, let's dive into this with a quote from the post-match analysis that just hits the nail on the head. They described the French team as coming out of the quagmire, survivor of hell. I mean, wow. Right? This absolutely wasn't one of those masterclasses in beautiful, flowing football that leaves you breathless. Not at all. It was a grinding, agonizing escape from an opponent that seemingly set out to make the game as miserable as humanly possible. Section 1, the trap and the hell. To really set the scene here, you have to picture the environment. The match in Philadelphia kicked off in a blistering 37 degrees Celsius. That is pure heat. Half the stadium was completely baked in the glaring sun. In fact, the source notes that fans in the stands were frantically waving handheld fans just to survive the climate, which created this really restless, heavy energy across the entire arena. By the 16th minute, players like Michael Elise were already dripping with sweat. Literally, just functioning in that kind of heat is a monumental task, let alone playing high-stakes tournament football against a team entirely determined to break your rhythm. Now, what's really fascinating here is the sheer tactical contrast in Paraguay's approach. Against Germany, they lined up in a 4-3-3, attacking fluidly and showing some real technical quality. But against France? Well, they completely threw that playbook out the window. Their coach, Gustavo Alfaro, deployed a brutal defensive five-man low block. The analysis straight up calls it pure anti-football. They weren't there to play an open game. They were there to disrupt, to frustrate, and to drag France down to a slow, grinding halt. And if you want statistical proof of that disruption, get this, 99. Paraguay only completed 99 passes throughout the entire 90 minutes. Keeping the ball that little at this level, it really underscores their absolute commitment to destroying the flow of the game rather than creating anything of their own. This aggressive approach resulted in absolute chaos out on the pitch. The match became a literal battle of attrition. You had players like Velasquez aggressively hunting down Bradley Barcola all game, and at one point he absurdly ended up falling right on top of the French goalkeeper Mike Mainan. The analysis points heavily to the referee, Ilgiz Tantashev, suggesting he basically completely lost control of the game. The source highlights that he missed blatant fouls, even ignoring clear offenses that definitely should have been caught on his own point-of-view camera. And to add to all the madness, Paraguay was illegally defending quick corners by standing just 2 meters away instead of the required distance. The frustration level was literally off the charts. But here is exactly why France actually survived. Cool-headedness. In the face of all this chaos, all those missed calls, and the deliberate provocation, the French team remained incredibly stoic. The source specifically praises Dayot Upamecano's vital, clutch defensive stops that prevented Paraguay from stealing a goal on a rare counterattack. And then there's Barcola. Instead of losing his temper when he was being hounded by Velasquez, he calmly looked at him and essentially just asked, "What you gonna do?" That mental fortitude, refusing to be dragged into a street brawl, was exactly what kept France in the tournament. Section 2. The Savior. Désiré Doué. So for an entire hour, the Paraguayan defense was locked up tight. We're talking Fort Knox levels of tight. The analysis asks the critical question that was basically on everyone's mind at that point. Who is going to break this deadlock? Who actually has the tactical lockpicking skills to find a nanometer of space when a whole team is parked right in front of their goal? France desperately needed a spark, a real injection of pure creativity in those incredibly tight spaces. And this brilliantly illustrates the exact sequence that fundamentally saved France's tournament. Let's break it down. Step 1. Doué enters the match as a substitute, bringing fresh, dynamic legs into a sweltering, exhausted arena. Step 2. In an impossibly tight space, surrounded by defenders, he executes this picture-perfect double-contact dribble. Step 3. He effortlessly weaves past a third defender. And finally, step 4. He draws the decisive foul from Diego Gomez inside the box, winning the penalty that Kylian Mbappé would then step up and convert. That 1-versus-4 sequence was a moment of sheer individual brilliance that completely shattered Paraguay's wall. Moving to Section 3. The Wall, Orlando Hale. Orlando Heel. Now, before this tournament, you might not have known his name, but you absolutely do now. He's a towering 1.99-meter-tall goalkeeper playing for San Lorenzo, currently valued around 6 million euros. And on this night, the analysis compares him to an unbeatable mini Cortez. He had an immense, commanding presence out there, pulling off incredible double saves against Coney and Mbappe. I mean, he basically single-handedly kept the scoreline to a bare minimum. The analyst even playfully notes a slightly awkward moment at the very end where Heel was seemingly left hanging for a handshake. But honestly, you really couldn't fault the keeper's incredible heroic performance. Section 4. On the road to Morocco. So the crucial point is we're now looking at a massive quarterfinal rematch of 2022 against Morocco, set to take place in Boston. If we look at this source's bookmaker odds, they heavily favor France to qualify at 1.56 compared to Morocco's 3.55. But hey, as we just learned from this grueling Paraguay match, odds do not play the game. In a World Cup quarterfinal, past results and betting lines completely go out the window. Let's zoom out and see how this builds across the rest of the bracket. We have an incredible sequence of upcoming mega matches. We've got Mexico versus England, Brazil taking on Norway, our huge France versus Morocco clash on Thursday night, and then a massive Iberian derby with Portugal against Spain on Monday. The tournament is rapidly accelerating right now. The deadwood has been cleared and the stakes are getting higher and higher every single day. We are 24 days into a 39-day tournament, and the intensity is absolutely peaking. With 15 days of top-tier football left to savor, it brings us to a rather existential question posed by our source, and frankly one we're all dreading. How exactly are we going to live our lives after this World Cup is over?